Hi. I thought we would do something a little different today. After the end of my last video, I did a little candid outro, which I've done a few times, and I'm not very good at it, going off script, but I thought maybe this time I would. A few of y'all have, made inquiries into all of the UAP and NHI discussions, and there seems to be some general excitement around that conversation, even here among my viewers. So I thought I would touch on a couple of things. I was watching Ross Coulthart, a little 20-minute blurb this morning about a special he's going to have on this evening at 7, which if I can find it, I am going to watch it. It sounds fascinating about some things going on around the Arizona border, and apparently have been for quite some time. Maybe he's going to do a CE5 viewing, or maybe he's just going to go out there with some people who have said they've seen things. And if you don't know what CE5 is, then I'm going to try not to give you too much information now, but it's essentially Stephen Greer's protocol for calling aliens. Anyway, it's a national, probably a global group now, but there's smaller chapters all over the country in different areas. So if you're interested in any of that, you can probably find some of it. I will be going over that in more detail in the future. But the reason why I'm mentioning it is because on the little blurb from Ross Coulthart this morning, he was doing a question and answer. If you don't know who that is, he's an Australian who does news reports on a lot of anomalous things, and he's really hardcore into the NHI discussion, and is really one of the leaders in that arena right now. But he gets way involved in the research and the discovery of whether or not things have any truth, and sometimes he believes things are true that people are saying isn't. So, and vice versa. He had a question and answer session that we watched this morning. It brought up the fact that I was, at one time very up to date on all the happenings in that world, especially on the heels of revealing my own abduction experience. But I haven't kept up with it because the work I'm doing here has taken precedence, and I'm great with that. But I do want to keep a finger on the pulse of what's going on in that UAP world. I do watch Chris Ramsey at Area 52 on occasion. He's somebody to follow if you're interested. One of my favorites, Michael Phillip with Third Eye Drops, is getting into that conversation a little bit more and interviewing a lot of people in that world. But back to Ross Coulthart, lots of different people writing in about fascinating things they've seen or things they've heard about, and we're just asking him his opinion and his professional opinion about those things. Anyway, one of the things that was brought up was something called the Tether Whales Incident. I have not looked this up. I'm doing this all on the fly on the heels of rejecting the video I just recorded for y'all. But in Tether Wales, he said sometime in the last 5 to 10 years, there was a sighting, and a woman saw a huge aerial craft hovering over her pasture. And shortly after she saw this thing, she saw a military aircraft chasing it, essentially. She, the next day, looked, tried to get some corroboration. Apparently some other people saw it, but they're wanting to remain anonymous. But the main witness did mention that the very next day, the forestry department had been out and cleared out like a huge circle of trees in an area that I guess sounds like it was adjacent to where her property was. And when she inquired about it, they said that they were removing trees that were having a fungal problem. So she thought that was very strange. And after all the dust had settled there, I guess she went out into the woods and looked at some of the trees and could see burn marks. Again, this is all, just from the little blurb I got from him this morning on the question and answer, but I found it intriguing. So the forestry department was taking out this circle of trees that apparently had some sort of fungal disease. On the surface, I imagine that's not that unusual. I suppose the timing makes it unusual. But so bear with me here, because this is how my brain works. And y'all are going to be like, oh my God, that is some conspiracy shit right there. But it's not conspiracy. It's out of the box thinking, and it's probably wrong. But it got me thinking about fungus. It's everywhere. It's everywhere in our world. We know it can be in our body. We know it's can be in our homes, apparently on trees. We know fungi grows on and in the ground. I mean, it's everywhere. But those spores and how pervasive fungus is in our world, we don't even have a clue at the impact of that on our daily lives. I mean, we know when someone gets sick with a fungus that is deadly. We know that there are fungus that are very bad for us. But there's also environmental fungus I'm quite sure that we live with all the time, and we just don't even know it exists. Then we have fungi that we eat, like mushrooms, and then we have fungi that we take as a psychedelic. So Psychedelic mushrooms induce visions that are meaningful to people who do it with intention. Bear with me here. So if these fungi are all pervasive and some fungi out there and oftentimes really available, like psilocybin grows in cow poop. We have 6 cows. I guarantee you there's some psilocybin growing out there somewhere. But what are the spores doing? How are we interacting with those fungi on a regular basis that we're not aware of? How are we interacting with the spores they create that we aren't even aware of? And I don't know, all of a sudden it was drawn to my attention that she's saying, this woman in Pinturk, Wales, is saying that a spaceship essentially was hovering over her pasture and that fungal trees were being removed next door or somewhere in the area. It got me thinking, what if fungal spores that we're living with can cause some low-level hallucination on a daily basis, like microdosing? What if we're getting microdosed, or some people in the right environment are getting microdosed with psychedelic fungal spores? That might induce visions of UAP. And I am in no way suggesting that would even be the only answer for that, but it really does make me think. We don't really know much about fungus, and we definitely don't hear much about it. The only thing we hear about are the scary, dangerous ones, really. But then I was thinking, what if the fungus is non-human intelligence? What if psilocybin itself is non-human intelligence? It's not that far-fetched. Not in this day and age when we're talking about spaceships flying around in the air. And I am so on the fence about what I really think NHI and UAP are. I do like Mike Masters' work on bioterrestrial, or I don't recall. But anyway, he specializes in examining the physical traits of the NHI that we're aware of and analyzing whether or not that could be future humans. I mean, that sounds crazy, but I mean, while we're talking about spaceships, let's talk about time travel aliens or aliens living underground, subterrestrial. That's my one little weird mind. What did I call it in another episode? It's creative imagination or something like that. Okay, another thing is, so we've mentioned Arizona and the Pinturk Wales situation. Another question on Ross Coulthard had to do with orbs that were spinning and flashing lights and things like this. And apparently, from the way he responded to it, apparently this is a thing. It's very common. But my thing is, I have taken video of Marfa lights. I've shared it, and I've gotten almost 0 views. And I don't know whether it's just because my video is so crappy that people are like, whatever. I don't know. But essentially, I saw one night, we always see Marfa lights when we go. And if you don't know what Marfa lights are, it's a phenomenon that's been occurring and recurring since the late 1800s. That's the first time it was documented was in like 1860s maybe. But I always see them. And one night in the fall, 2024, we were sitting, and the last of all the rest of the people left the viewing area. So we were by ourselves, and they were just lighting up like crazy on the horizon. And I had my iPhone out and I was filming and wasn't sure if I was actually catching anything because I wear glasses and I couldn't see what I was doing, and it was dark and blah, blah, blah. I'm getting old. But later on, when I looked at the video, I saw 2 things that were pretty phenomenal. One was one of those orbs evaporated into thin air. I caught it on camera. And the other, and this is more common, I see this all the time when I'm out there, those lights, those orbs light up, change color, and then it's as if they're spinning. Like you see the color, and the way the color is oscillating inside the orb, you can tell it's a spinning motion. It spins so fast. And I had this green spinning orb caught on camera. Of course, with the iPhone 13 Pro, the clarity is not perfect, but you still get a pretty good view of it. Okay, so I decided to add the Marfa light video here. I did speed up the footage so it didn't take quite as long, so you have to really pay attention. But here's 2 orbs. Now one lights up very bright, and you can see it sort of spinning. It continues to spin here, and changes colors a little bit. fades out, and now you saw a couple other blink. Now watch this.
Oh my God.
It expanded and evaporated. Now this is it slowed down. And now this is slowed down and colorized so you can really see the patterns as it was forming. Now, when I say colorized, I just mean I saturated the film with color. The colors, I guess, were already there. And honestly, I've caught that many, many times. And maybe that's what I need to do is collage all of them together if I can find all the videos. But I find it interesting. Marfa lights have not really been included in this modern NHI UAP discussion, even though Ross Coulthard was talking about, I can't remember the place, but there's a large military base in the middle of Australia, a large United States military base that was initially built to monitor missile launches around the world. Since that area is so desolate and their night skies are so clear, I'm sure they were able to get really, really great signals from there. But over the years, it has also become apparently a central area for UAP, NHI information exchange, if nothing else. Apparently, he was privy to some radio transmissions that were sharing some phenomenon that were going on in the area or being reported to them. It was fascinating. And so I was reflecting on Marfa Lights, and that's an old military base. So I don't know whether or not that's significant, but the base is defunct. It's not there anymore. All the buildings are gone, but I don't know. It's kind of interesting. So let's see. Is that all? Okay. The last thing I'm going to talk about in terms of the UAP and HI thing, and this was something I was thinking about as Ross was talking about the Arizona stuff. It made me think, if things are happening on the border, this Arizona and Mexico, does that dumb wall have anything to do with it? Either as a cause of the activity or the activity is the cause of the wall. I don't know. Hadn't really thought that one out either, but does the wall serve another purpose that we're unaware of? I don't know. It's not like it's keeping any aircraft out or anything like that, but it always seems so strange to me that the wall became this big thing. Anyway, I'm not going to get into that. Let's see what else. Okay, another thing I wanted to talk about, and this comes back to the Marfa light thing. I'm not a scientist, and I think it'd be real easy to jump on some kind of bandwagon with things I don't know anything about. And because it's, when you're connecting dots, sometimes dots seem to connect, but they're not really good dots to connect. But one of the things going around in the YouTube sphere is this scientific paper that showed up online is Scientific Research, an academic publisher. And I have seen this journal, open access journal, many, many times and seen what appeared to me to be very credible papers that people had submitted. And I'm going to say, before I read any of this, that I'm skeptical. I'm skeptical because if I was going to turn in a scientific research paper, A, I would not have any misspelled words. B, I would be using good grammar. However, some of these people are not English. So I'm sure translation is part of the equation here. But I'm going to read the abstract and see if it gives us any basic information about what this is. So this is about plasma, and it goes into plasmoids. Some of the pictures that are included in the document, and this document is like hundreds of pages long, and I only think I printed 50 maybe, and I'm certainly not going to go over the whole thing. Some other content creators have. You can find the document yourself if you want to, but there are people that believe that the UAP conversation is intertwined with the idea that we really don't know what plasma is. We know some about plasma, but we don't know everything there's to know about plasma. And so, okay, maybe we can draw some dots there without even getting too silly about it. But this abstract is called Unidentified Anomalous Phenomena, Extraterrestrial Life, Plasmoids, Shapeshifters, Replicons, Thunderstorms, Lightning, Hallucinations, Aircraft Disasters, and Ocean Sightings. That covers a lot of territory. Okay, as documented by NASA Space Shuttle films, and detailed in this report, self-illuminating, pulsating, plasma-like UAP, UFO plasmoids have multiple shapes and sizes, are attracted to electromagnetic activity, and travel at different velocities from different directions, making 90 to 180 degree turns, as well as colliding, intersecting, and piercing other plasma, and have been filmed by U.S. Navy personnel and U.S. Customs and Border Protection, flying above and diving, sinking beneath the ocean, and by NASA following, circling, and hovering near the space shuttles, satellites, and the MIR International Space Station, and congregating above and descending into thunderstorms and the lower atmosphere, which is the air corridor favored by commercial and military aircraft. And this may account for reports of UAPs following, harassing, chasing, and toying with aircraft. Plasmas also have explosive properties. Makes me think of that Marfa-like plasmoid exploding or disintegrating or whatever it did on my camera, which can negatively affect electronics and mental activity, possibly inducing hallucinations of alien abductions. Whoa. They can pass through glass, plastic, metal, and enter the cockpits of airplanes and have been observed by astronauts inside spacecrafts, the MIR and the ISS, International Space Station. It is hypothesized that given their propensity to collide, plasmoids may be responsible for at least some unexplained, inexplicable aircraft disasters. Thunder lightning storms are the main drivers of Earth's GEC and direct positive currents into the ionosphere, which attract plasmas. The troposphere also has a positive charge, and the ocean surface under whitewater and turbulent conditions develops a positive charge. And we hypothesize that this accounts for sightings of UAP in the lower atmosphere and soaring above and diving into the oceans, including, as reported here, shape-shifting UAP replicants that split into or generate additional shape-shifting UAPs as filmed by NASA and U.S. Customs. Y'all, this is weird. This is weird shit right here. You think my talking about quantum physics is weird? This is weird. Plasmoids appear to be purposefully interacting and engaging in complex behaviors, and it's suspected they are sentient and represent a fourth domain of life. Although plasmas in the lower atmosphere may be responsible for UAP sightings over the centuries, including those that appear to battle over cities or follow and harass military ships and planes, plasmoids cannot account for all UAPs, which may include extraterrestrial spacecraft from other worlds. Okay. Wow. One of the things I see happening on a lot of YouTube channels is like they're straight up reading this stuff. And I am not going to sit here and read, an hour's worth of material, but I think I will read a little bit more until I feel like I'm at a stopping point. Another one, because I'm curious now. I guess I should mention some of the names on this paper. Gabriel Joseph Ron, Olivier Planchon, Christopher Impey, Richard Armstrong, Carl Gibson, Rudolph Schild, Astrobiology Research Center, California. This was done in 2024, by the way. It's very recent. Journal of Modern Physics. Number one, introduction. It looks pretty long. Let's get started. As documented in this report and a supplementary video compilation of NASA Space Shuttle films, pulsating sulfilluminated plasmas, aka plasmoids, unidentified anomalous phenomenon, target and collide with other plasmoids, and have followed, approached, and congregated near the space station, space shuttles, and satellites, and have been filmed flying toward and engaging in complex interactions above thunderstorms in the ocean, including changing shape and replicating. These are established facts. For those of you listening and not watching, I did post some additional information about the Journal of Modern Physics. It isn't highly regarded, as not all papers are submitted for peer review, which is a critical part of the process. So use your own discretion and do your own research. And I will add here that, as I stated in the beginning, I am suspicious about this paper, but I still think that it's reporting on things that we need to stay open-minded about. So I'm going to keep reading. Whoa. Thunderstorms are major sources of positive charges directed to the ionosphere and likely provide excitatory charges to plasmoids congregating above and those descending within these raging storms. Thunderstorms also provide negative charges to Earth's surface, which is surrounded by insulating lower atmospheres that are also positively charged, i.e. the stratosphere and troposphere, whereas the ocean's surface under whitewater and turbulent conditions may develop a positive charge. As documented here and in NASA's space shuttle films, plasmoids will congregate near the space shuttles and descend into lightning storms in the lower atmosphere, which is the air corridor favored by commercial and military aircraft, as I mentioned before. The thermosphere ionosphere is a positively charged environment, and plasmas are electrically charged, physical, electrical, and magnetic phenomena comprised of negative, positive, and neutral charges and cellular layers. What? Those of the upper ionosphere and lower atmosphere troposphere have various shapes, sizes, and colors, and some consist of multiple plasmas and can replicate, forming additional plasma as well as change shape. Glowing pulsating plasmoids have been filmed in the ionosphere and lower atmosphere flying in V formations, and as verified by quantitative analysis, will accelerate to hyperspeeds and make 90 and 180 degree turns, as well as colliding, merging, and piercing one another. A recent quantitative analysis of 20 seconds of stable film footage from the STS-115 Tether Incident indicates that some plasmoids range in size from 0.1 to 4 kilometers squared and travel at speeds up to 28 kilometers, which is 17.4 miles per second, which yields a velocity of 1,680 kilometers, 1,044 miles per minute. Others travel at much faster rates, whose velocities have not yet been determined. Collectively, plasmoids exhibit aerodynamic characteristics well beyond those of any known aircraft or missile, either manned or unmanned. So a couple things come to mind here. Could these plasmoids be mistaken for spaceships hovering over pastures in the distance? If they can take on different shapes, I would imagine so. Anyway, that's one thing. The other thing is, I can say we have been watching the sky intently for a very long time. We live out in the country. Well, we just sit out and look at the sky. But then we got interested in CE5, so then we really started looking up in the sky, but we never saw anything. We don't have a lot of light pollution, but it is growing. Some of the communities out here are getting bigger and brighter, and the night sky isn't what it used to be. But recently, we've started to see things. We do get a lot of aircraft. We get a lot of helicopters, military planes, drones. They're both civilian and military. There's a lot of stuff going on in the sky, so we've been very hesitant to claim any of it was particularly anomalous. It's anomalous to us. That doesn't mean anything necessarily. But we have seen a couple of things recently. One was an orb. It was a white orb. We both saw it independently. We were just sitting there, each of us very quiet, because we just couldn't believe what we were seeing. And we didn't corroborate the story with each other until after it was over, because we just didn't want it to go away. We didn't want to miss anything. But basically, it was a white orb that at first we thought it could be a helicopter light. We do see that fairly often. But all of a sudden, it literally like retracted away from us in the opposite direction and disappeared. You know, getting smaller as it went away and dimmer until it just vanished. Could a helicopter do that? Go backward? Not like that. So could a drone do that? It could possibly, but again, it's pretty strange. The next thing we saw, which I actually did film and post up, and a lot of people saw it, it's, I guess, being called a SpaceX thing, but it was sure curious, and it was this big gray cloud.
Is it still there? Yeah. That's weird.
Zoom out. Look at this, guys. There's a white dot in it.
I see a white something at the bottom.
It looks like
right.
it's splitting. 2 dots now. And now you get the sound of the coyotes in the distance too. See if I can zoom in anymore. Gosh, now it looks like 3 lights.
Should I signal it with my laser?
That is just about the strangest thing. You guys, this is up over pasture land. There's no cities or towns that could account for some like ambient light up on a random cloud. Although I do see something
It's moving
up there. Could it be a cloud? The sky is completely clear otherwise. Completely.
You see that light in it?
Yeah.
See that light in it that's moving?
Yeah, it is. It's moving with
I'm
it.
shining my light on it.
Okay.
All right, so I'm just going to pick up for a little bit longer here. Presumably, those that descend into thunderclouds and appear in the lower atmosphere and above the ocean engage in maneuvers similar to those in the ionosphere. And this may partially explain why plasmas have been detected by U.S. Navy personnel descending at hypervelocities from the upper atmosphere and filmed soaring above the ocean. Glowing, pulsating, brightly lit plasmas have also been filmed in the thermosphere, traveling across America and descending toward and above the ocean. As noted, during periods of turbulence and whitewater conditions, the surface of the ocean and air and atmosphere directly above are also positively charged, as is the ionosphere. Thus, the ocean may be attractive to plasmas, thereby accounting for numerous observations of UAPs above the ocean by Navy ships and naval aviators. And here's another thing. If, in the UAP discussion, I don't know if you're familiar with this or not, the aerial phenomenon stories sort of wrap in this whole the spaceship is conscious thing, like an alien would be sitting at the helm and then telepathically sending directions to the spaceship on what direction to go in. But if the spaceship itself was actually sentient or sentient, then perhaps it's true. All right. As reported here, a shape-shifting plasma filmed by a U.S. Customs and Border Protection DHC-8 off the coast of Puerto Rico continuously changed shape and size as it flew over an airport, then the ocean, and repeatedly split off to form additional shape-shifting structures. Although these Puerto Rico UAPs are most likely a transient lower atmosphere plasma, those in the ionosphere also change shape and size and split off to form additional plasmoids. Okay, here's something else. Did you guys see that ball lightning video that was going around on Reels or something this week? I don't know if that thing was doctored or not, but if that's what a plasma or plasmoid looks like, it looks very, very alive. That thing had tendrils that was sticking out and like sticking to the pavement and to a wall. And I don't know. If I can find it, I will post it here as well. That's some crazy shit. As documented in NASA videos and in this report, plasmoids in the ionosphere will arrive off camera, sometimes in pairs, and approach and descend into thunderstorms. In other instances, hundreds of brightly glowing plasmoids and other unknown entities will congregate above a raging storm and engage in a variety of behaviors, including turning, following, targeting, colliding, and piercing one another. Behavior also observed when they gather around a satellite tether, generating electromagnetic energy into the space medium. This is not speculation. These are established facts based on official NASA films. Okay, I wanted to interject here something about one of the videos that's referenced in the paper. It's actually the very first video that I did a little bit of research on. It is from a space shuttle mission, and in the video, there are multiple, quote, entities flying around in the screen. And the astronaut says something about that it is debris that just basically flies with them. And it was very nondescript. And the audio from the video allowed that statement from the astronaut. But the crew on the ground were trying to get a little bit more information about what they were seeing. But at that point, they cut off all the audio from the astronaut. So there are plenty of people who have claimed to have debunked this video. However, I'm going to say that some of the explanations don't make sense to me. Now, again, I am not a scientist and I'm not a heavy-duty photographer that could tell you about parabolas and reflections and blah, blah, blah. But if you look at this video, and I'll share the link here in a minute. If you look at this video, the specks that are floating freely all over the place just have to be independent particles, if nothing else, floating around in objective space outside of the aircraft. There have been other speculation that it's actually like an artifact of the camera, but I'm not buying that. Those specks are flying in all different kinds of directions. There's no pattern to it. It's very random. And that's all I'm going to say about it, is make up your own mind, do your own research. But I'm going to continue reading this paper based on the idea that these things were spotted in these videos. It is up to us to figure out if they are something suspicious, anomalous, or not. So I don't have a problem with trying to debunk it, but I want it done in the vein of we're just trying to find the truth, not disprove the crazies who think that is something anomalous. So anyway, just moving forward with reading this paper, take all this into consideration. I'm going to dig in a little deeper on the source of this paper and make sure that I'm reading something that has validity. But I believed that it was published in Modern Physics. So does that make it true? I don't know. But I think it gives it some credibility, and we should consider paying attention to it until proven otherwise, completely. All right, carry on.
Oh my gosh. Okay. Remember, quantum world. Thunderstorms typically range from 10,000 to 20,000 meters above sea level. Therefore, plasmoids from the ionosphere that dive into thunderstorms are also descending to an altitude where commercial and military jets typically fly. Plasmas in the lower atmosphere would account for the numerous observations over thousands of years of glowing orbs flying above cities and encounters with UAPs by civilian and military pilots prior to, during, and after the Second World War, and who were not uncommonly to report that brightly lit UAP have followed, confronted, and nearly collided with them, as exemplified by the following report. Dr. Harvey Wichman, or maybe Wichman, a professor at Claremont College, reported an encounter with UFO, aka plasma, when working as a flight instructor on a Cessna 150 training plane, accompanied by a student on a night cross-country assignment. As they departed Lindbergh Field, San Diego, on the night of May 28, 1968, he and his student were confronted by a UFO in the form of a bright light approaching on a collision course at a very high rate of speed. A rapid deceleration and hovering, rapid acceleration away from the author's plane, followed by another deceleration and hovering. This apparent reconnoitering activity was repeated approximately 10 times, after which the object failed to reappear. Wichman, therefore, did not see an object with a solid structure, but a bright pulsating light that repeatedly circled, followed, targeted, and nearly collided with his plane, and then vanished. Wichman reported that he felt confused and disoriented by the experience and struggled to control his plane, alluding to a temporary electrical disturbance and a near loss of control. So, I'm reading a report that is talking about factual excerpts from other literature coming from the military, well documented, corroborated sightings that they're attributing to what's being called plasmoids. Y'all, if you are not sure we're moving into an evolutionary time period with a ramping up of changes, I really think that you need to think about that again. There are a lot of explanations, and we may be missing the point and missing the ball and all the things completely. But if we're going to see the world through this quantum lens, we have to be open more than ever to the idea that there are things out there that we don't understand that are going to force us to understand, at least a little bit. They're coming into our existence. They're coming into our realm of reality now. And if we're going to just stay in the Newtonian paradigm of material existence, we're not going to be able to grasp some of the concepts. Now, this is absolutely physical. Plasma is a material. Sentient plasma is material, but also alive. So we're going to need to be open. So anyway, I think what I'll do is in my next video, I'll go on with begin with Dr. Dispenza, because I think it's really, really important. But I might just read a little bit from this report every time. I mean, think of this. Okay, hey, just while we're at it, Glinda was riding around in a pink plasmoid. I like that. That movie's got it all going on. Anyway, okay, that's it. This is why I script my episodes, okay? I'll go in some strange directions. Okay, that's it. Oh, I'm done. I could read more, but I'm not gonna. Okay, love you. Bye.